Hi guys, hello my dear fellow foreign English speakers, good morning and welcome back to my video blog. Obviously, I'm Robbie from EnglishHarmony.com, your friend, your English fluency mentor, and your teacher. Well, I really don't like the word teacher. I actually came up with this new term, fluency facilitator. Basically, I facilitate other people's fluency because at the end of the day, it's up to you to do all the hard work. I'm not going to be moving your mouth. You're going to have to do it yourselves. So it's actually you who are improving your own fluency. I'm just giving you the right advice and I'm steering you in the right direction, so to speak. Today, but first of all, excuse me, I'm going to have a sip of my morning coffee. This time around it's real coffee, right? I have 2 cups of real coffee a day, and that's it. Now, yesterday I touched upon the subject of the so-called silent period, which I think is a total pile of shit. Excuse my French, right? And basically, for those unaware, the silent period, right, is something that certain language teaching professionals have come up with, and it's the theory that first of all, you have to spend a certain amount of time only listening to the language, soaking it in, right? And then you will start speaking a few months down the road. But first of all, you shouldn't be even trying to speak. You have to just take it all in, let the information sink in, and that's the so-called silent period. And what they base this theory upon is the fact that infants learn a language that way, right? They say that infants only observe and listen the surrounding world. Obviously, when their parents and other relatives and other people around them speak, it kind of all sinks in. And then at some stage, the infant will start, when the infant becomes a toddler, obviously, they will start pronouncing the first words and then form sentences and so on and so forth. But if I'm not mistaken, I've actually touched upon this subject previously. And I'm going to look up this article after recording the video, and I'm hoping that I'm going to find the article. In that case, you're going to click on the link here and read it, right? And the article in question is all about why you can't actually compare a child who's just learning his first language, an infant and a toddler, right? And you can't compare that human being with an adult foreign English speaker, with someone who's already adult, speaks his first language, and then learns English as his second language. You can't compare the two. Firstly, because the second person, the adult foreigner, has already his brain developed, right? He can operate with abstract concepts and can verbalize his thoughts, whereas the infant, the toddler, only learns to do that. Right? So the brain capacity of any adult person, or a teenager for that matter, is way bigger than that of an infant. And they don't have to go through some sort of a silent period. It's all a made-up thing. You can't transfer the same principle onto adult language learning world. You just can't do that, right? But why I'm recording this video is to tell you guys that I just came up with this theory as to why these English teaching professionals have actually come up with this silent period thing, and why they think it's the best thing after sliced bread, right? Which is an expression telling that something is really good, because obviously when they invented sliced bread, it was a great invention. You don't have to cut up the bread anymore. It's readily sliced for you. You just have to take the slice and spread butter on it or whatever. And obviously when something is really good, they say that it's the next best thing after sliced bread. So my theory is when a native English speaker learns another language, whether it's his second or third or fourth language for that matter, requirements for those native English speakers, or let's put it this way, expectations, right, aren't as great as those of a foreign English speaker, basically, if a foreigner learns the English language, expectations from that person are much bigger. And now I can probably expect a barrage of attacks on me, telling me that what I'm saying is total bullshit, that this is wrong, that there are so many native English speakers who speak second and third languages fluently, just like natives do, and that this is just unfair on native English speakers. But just listen me out first of all, and then you can judge me, right? So where I'm coming from is the English language is the most popular language on the planet, beyond the shadow of a doubt. I think we can all agree on that. Obviously, if you happen to live in China, for instance, where there's more than 1 billion people speaking Chinese, and they have no real need for another language within their country, that's a different matter altogether. But I'm talking about the entire world as such. Everything is interlinked these days. The tourism industry, international business, trade, everything. The media has ensured that the English language is de facto language on this planet, right? So if you happen to have been born as a native English speaker, you have what I would call an unfair advantage, right? Because you can speak the language of the world by default. You learned it as an infant, as a toddler, and then you can speak it, right? So I think that there is this perception, whether you're going to call it a BS or not, but I believe that it is there, right? That when a native speaker, English speaker for that matter, goes to a different country, be it France or Brazil or China or whatever, right? The locals treat that English speaker, that native English speaker, as a slightly higher human being, so to speak, right? Because he speaks the language of the world. And by default, he calls the shots because he speaks the main language, okay? And then when that native English speaker, for instance, learns the local language, they don't expect really him to be as fluent as the local in that native language. And he can speak just a little bit, and everyone is going to say, oh yeah, you're doing a great job, you're speaking my language, you're speaking French, you're speaking Chinese, oh yeah, that's great, well done. Whereas if the Chinese speaker went to, say, the United States, right, nothing less than near perfection would be expected from him. What I'm saying is, if, say, an American English speaker goes to China, right, settles down there and speaks like half decent Chinese, then everyone will say, yeah, you're doing great, you're doing brilliant. Whereas if the Chinese person went to the United States, like most people would expect him to speak way better in English than the native English speaker speaks in Chinese. I just think that it is the case, right? You can say that I'm totally wrong on this, but I think that deep down inside, all of you guys know that it is the case, right? So, how does the whole silent period tie into this whole thing? Well, the thing is, the native English speaker can afford to go through some silent period and then start speaking a little bit, and he'll be alright, right? Because for the most part, his success in life is going to be determined by the English language that he already speaks by default. Whereas we foreigners, say I'm a Latvian, right? I came to Ireland. My English has to be good in order to succeed in life, to get a good job, to be able to speak with people in social situations, go to institutions and the like, right? It just has to be very decent. Well, surely I could exist with minimal English knowledge, only I wouldn't be really successful then. I would be very limited in what I can achieve in life, right? And other native English speakers would judge me for that, okay? So my English just has to be good in order to succeed. And I couldn't afford to go through some silent period and not speak because the everyday situations simply demanded that I speak quite well, right? So the very life forced me into a situation where such silent period was an impossibility, right? Whereas the native English speaker can afford not progressing as quickly, and even then when he starts speaking, expectations from other people aren't as high, so he can get away with maybe struggling speech, so where he struggles and thinks that it's alright, right? If I'm in the same situation, it's not alright for me. When I was struggling with my English fluency years ago, I was still speaking and people still, they could get me, right? They could get the drift as to what I meant, what I was trying to say, right? And there were some native English speakers, some local Irish people who would say, oh yeah, your English is fine. You don't need to be worried about it, you know? But I think that they were just saying that to... Maybe they were saying that because they kind of put themselves in my shoes and they were thinking... They clearly knew that their language learning efforts hadn't resulted in anything near as good as my English learning efforts. So they were kind of comparing my success with their own language success because, say for instance, when they learn Irish in schools in Ireland, nobody can speak the language because it's all done in the same traditional way. You just do grammar, drills, you learn vocabulary, but you end up not being able to speak at all. So just because I was speaking, even though I was hesitating and struggling big time, but just because I was speaking for the locals, for some locals, it seemed like a great achievement, right? Whereas, just like I said, most other people didn't expect anything less than near perfection, because if I wanted to work in, say, customer service industry and similar jobs, I just had to be able to speak very well, quite fluently, right? So this is my theory. This is why I think the silent period thing and the whole listening theory is so prevalent in the English teaching industry. It's all because the English teaching industry is dominated by native English teachers, right? And some of those guys are probably using the same approach when learning some other language, and they achieve half decent results, and they think, so that's great. It's the same thing can be applicable for foreigners when they learn the English language, you know? But they don't realize that when you, a foreigner, learn the English language, like, you just have to achieve great results, okay? Because the expectations that are put on us are way, way higher. Just like I said, I expect huge amount of abuse to come in now and say that I'm totally wrong, but this is it, this is my opinion, and I'm gonna stick with my guns, and if you don't like it, whatever, I don't care, that's my opinion, you know, I'm entitled to it. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't subscribed to it yet, and post any comments you may have in the comment section below, my friends. Chat to you soon, bye bye.